We were dealing with radicals, we graphed them, we simplified them, all kinds of stuff. Today, we're going to be told to solve. So that's the next step that we've added on. So we got to figure out what x actually is. When we're dealing with the radical, what you're always going to do first thing is get rid of any extra junk. Okay, extra junk means stuff that is not underneath the radical with your variable. It's extra stuff being multiplied or divided or added or subtracted out on the end. This has extra junk right now in that 2. Okay, this is extra junk because it's not in the radical with the other stuff. Okay, so that's how I know I've got extra junk, so I need to get rid of that.
Divide.
Good, the opposite of multiplying by 2 is the divide by 2, so we're going to divide both sides by 2. So same steps as it was when it was a middle school equation. Here the 2 divided by 2 is 1, it just cancels out. So we've got the square root of x plus 1. Over here 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay, hadn't done anything earth-shattering so far, everybody okay? Alright, now we're trying to solve for x. It's underneath the square root. But that's all that's over there. We got what's called isolate the radical. We got the radical all by itself. So now I want to get rid of that radical. So I want to undo a square root. What undoes a square root? What's the opposite of square root of something? Square it. So we're going to square the whole equation. Now when we square a square root, cancels it out, right? So that just leaves me with x plus 1. When we square 2, we get 4.
Minus 1.
Just like middle school, subtract your 1, and there you have it.
That's easy.
Is that an egg sandwich? It's sort of yellow, is it?
Unnutritious bread. My mom makes me happy. She's a good job.
I like it.
Alright, this one says the cube root of 2x minus 9, and then that minus 1 is not underneath the radical, it's out on the side. Minus 1 is equal to 2. The directions are the same all day long today, just solve. First step in solving is going to be getting rid of extra junk.
Plus 1.
Very good. That minus 1 is our extra junk on this one. Everybody see that? So to undo a minus 1, we add 1. So whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to both. So it gives me the cube root of 2x minus 9 is equal to 3. Now, last problem it was being square rooted. This time it's being cube rooted. So what are we going to do to undo a cube root? Cube. Raise it to the third power. So here the third power, the third root, cancel out. Now I've got to figure out what 3 to the third is. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3, my finger wouldn't work, is 27. Right? Now it's your two-step middle school equation. So 2x is 36. Divided by 2. You got it, sir?
Yeah.
Is that 18? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Can't think so, man. It's got to be dead on.
It is
We color it about pretty close.
yeah, but like I don't remember anything that was going on in boy. I don't even take chemistry anymore, so if I fell, I don't know.
Yeah, but you have to have it.
Yeah, well, I don't have a 3.5 anyway, so it's all I'm going to get on.
Yeah, how do you know how much?
Because I have a 2.5.
What class?
Okay, those two are just like the two we just did. I want you to try both of those. Okay, it's number 1 and 2 there, just like the number 1 and 2 we just did in our notes. See if you can solve both of those.
Hang on, give me a moment, bro.
Dirty.
What you?
Two.
I got 14. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 14. You divide by 2, which gives you 4. And then you square root 4.
Oh yeah,
Gives you
I
16.
squared it. I
And
didn't
then you
square
minus 2.
Ooh,
Boom. Boom, boom.
like,
What'd you get for the second? I got 6.
Well, I didn't divide by
Think that's right, covered?
Wow, that's my first set.
What'd you say?
6.
Who else has
I got
size?
3 plus 2 gives you 5.
Yeah.
And you
Cube
cube
that.
root 5, which gives you 125. Then you minus 5, which
Minus
gives.
being subtracted, so you're
Oh, yeah.
Goofy stuff like your medicine.
So it'd be 130 divided by 2.
It's about y'all.
Yeah, that's what I got.
I had to think the way you were talking about it.
65.
That's like
Well,
in every
I'm
single
trying to-
place. I know. In every single place, she would different names or something like that. And y'all do this. I was looking.
Huh? Breakfast.
Are we gonna know it? Are you talking about her Instagram?
This one I don't have much because I don't like a lot of.
Didn't go to bed
Oh,
too.
I have to have
I was
some
like,
of it,
I woke up
otherwise
every
it's
hour.
not
I was not tired at all. I woke up
You like
before and
your
was like,
sausage
alright, I
goes
was gonna
right?
get up and
Yeah.
make a
done.
minute.
Piece?
No. Thank you, though.
That,
You do
slept
that?
till at least noon every day. And then stayed up all night. Then slept all day.
I slept till 4
That part up pretty good. Does this guy get any harder?
Be a few more steps, but then you get the basics stay the same. Alright, what did you do first on number 1 over here?
Divide by 2.
Divided by 2, because we were being multiplied by 2. So it gave us the square root of x plus 2 is equal to 4. Everybody okay there? Then we undo the square root by squaring it, and that got us x plus 2 is 16. Everybody okay there? So last step, subtract your 2, so we got a 14. Everybody do all right on that?
Yep.
Any of that you don't know why I did or where I got it? We good? All right. Number 2, what would your first step be?
Add 2.
So that would get us the cube root of 2x minus 5 is equal to 5. That good? Then what would we do? Undo the cube root by cubing. So that'd be 2x minus 5 is equal to 5 minus 5 is 125. Good on that?
5.
Now my 5 is being subtracted, so I add it. So 2x is 130. And x is
Oh,
65. Good job. Not too bad. Am I all right on that? Okay. Next phase.
My skin. Decrease.
So,
Put on big.
hold on, and you see.
Looks like we're a Okay, this one says x plus 1 is equal to the square root of 7x plus 15. Yes. First step still is to see if there's any extra junk with the radical. On the right side where the radical is, all of that stuff is underneath it. There's nothing extra stuck out on the front and the end anywhere, so there is no extra junk. So we're ready now just to get rid of that radical, which is what Stephen and Trevor both said undo the square root by squaring. Okay, so when we square everything, this is where this one becomes different now. I don't just have one piece over here to square. I have to square x plus 1, which means you have to take that whole quantity twice. Okay, you can't just say, well, that's x squared plus 1. You got to do the FOIL on this here. When I square this one, it does cancel out. Okay, so
X squared.
right? But don't forget that. When you square, you're squaring that whole thing, which means you got to write it twice and FOIL it.
What is it, x squared plus x plus 1?
Close. Be 2x. Because there's your x squared, and 1x and 1x is 2x. And then there's your plus 1. Alright.
Do some math on there. Combine that.
Right? What you need to notice on this is we've got a quadratic now. We've got a squared. When we solve quadratics, we did them by factoring, completing the square, taking square roots, quadratic formula, all of that. We set it equal to 0. So I need to try to move that 7x and the 15 over there with the rest of the stuff. That ought to be what you're thinking about right now.
You're going to have x squared minus 5x.
Good. So I'm going to subtract 7x from itself and its buddy on the other side. I'm going to subtract 15 from itself and its buddy on the other side. So that gets me x squared minus 5x minus 14 is equal to 0. Okay, so you can decide now how you want to solve this quadratic. It is factorable, so that's the way I'm going to do it. I look at a times c, factors of negative 14 that add to negative 5.
7 or -7.
Negative 7 and 2. Very good, Stephen. So that means this is x minus 7 times x plus 2. Some of y'all can skip that step and already have it solved. Go for it. X minus 7 equals 0 gets you 7. And x plus 2 equals 0 gets you negative 2. Now, got to check these. Well, I haven't made you check them so far, but since this is dealing with the radical, what kind of number cannot be underneath the radical?
0.
No? Negative. So let's go back to our original problem and see if either one of these would be a negative underneath here. First one I got, what were the answers? 7. 49, 49 plus 15, that's not a negative, right? So I'm okay on that. What was our other one? Negative 2. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. Negative 14 plus 15. That's not a negative, right? So I'm good on that. If I ended up with a negative anywhere underneath there, I know that an imaginary can't equal a real. So I would know it's not one of my right answers. Alright, let's look at the longest kind and then we'll come back and get some easier ones. Alright, I got square root of x plus 2, and then a plus 1's not underneath there, is equal to the square root of 3 minus x. Alright, what are you thinking? Besides, oh no, I don't want to do it.
So how many days it took us this rate?
Isn't it like
Okay,
3?
Steven said square it, and that's what I am going to do, but why? That's going to clear out a radical, yeah, but nobody's concerned about that extra junk.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, our first step on all of them so far, and Stephen, you are right. Okay, I just want everybody to see why. Our first step on all of them has been get rid of extra junk. If I were to do that here, whatever you do on one side of the equal sign, you got to do to the other. So you're just going to be moving that extra junk from side to side. You're not going to be able to get rid of it in this case because both sides have the radical. So if you say, well, I want to get rid of the extra junk here, okay, you can, but then guess what? You're going to have extra junk on this side if you do that, right? Because there's nothing to combine it. You can't put it just automatically underneath that radical. So I'm going to be with Stephen, and I'm going to just keep it how it is and square the whole thing. Now, what you'll be doing when you square that is you'll be getting rid of this radical only. This one's going to have a lot of work on it because it's a binomial. What do you got to do when you square a binomial? Got to get a dry erase marker. We need more bold. If I take that on the left side and square it, that means I have to write it twice and FOIL it because it's a binomial. So you've got here square root of x plus 2 plus 1 that you have to write twice and FOIL. Alright, this is sometimes where people will get lost.
What
Say,
happens if you got 0?
I don't think that's the right answer. And 0 is an answer, but I don't remember getting that on this
I got
problem.
2x equals 0.
No, you messed up somewhere. Alright, when we FOIL this, what's going to happen when you multiply those two first one pieces together? What cancels?
The square root.
Just the square root, very good. So the square root times the square root will cancel out, and you'll have x plus 2.
Oh, I didn't FOIL it.
On my outer, 1 times the square root of x plus 2 is just the square root of x plus 2. Same thing on my inner. Last, 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, so right now I've got square root of x plus 2 and square root of x plus 2. One of them and one of them is 2 of them. Now here, you've got like terms. So I'm going to write this I just put the 2 and the 2 at the end on that 4. Okay? So, when we squared this, we got x plus 2, square roots of x plus 2 plus 4. We squared this, that's just a single term there, so the square and the square root canceled out. Now the dilemma, and this is the hardest kind today, okay, so you don't see as many of these, but the dilemma now is what was a radical over here is gone, but we still got a radical over here. So now we need to start trying to get this radical all by itself. Okay? So I would say, well, you can do that, right? You can do this, right? Okay, so that's gone. I got 2 square roots of x plus 2. That's gone. It's equal to negative 1 minus 2x. Now what are we dealing with? Yeah, we've got a
Square it again.
I think I missed a 2. I did. Right here, this is that, but then I still had this other plus 2 over here.
I thought you added it to the 2 and got 4.
Yes.
You put the 4 at the end.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm still off somewhere. Let me see for a second. 2 of those is that. 2 plus 2 is that. That's right. Y'all are right. I can make all of them. I see what it is. I knew something was stupid. On my last here, 1 times 1 is what?
1.
So it's supposed to be
3.
Which means here, when you subtract that 3, that's going to cancel out. So this would just be negative 2x, yeah. Alright, that's going to work a lot in your favor. That was aggravating that I screwed you up, but now it's going to be a lot better because this part still has extra junk being multiplied by 2. We divide by 2, and you could divide by negative, that would be fine. Leaves me with the square root of x plus 2 is equal to negative x. I'm almost there. This has been the longest one. Undo the square root by squaring it. When you square a negative, it becomes a positive. That's why I wasn't real worried about the negative on that. It'd be the same thing either way. Okay, you can decide on which way you want to move stuff here. You can subtract x and the 2 over here, or you can subtract x squared over here. Factoring is easier when your squared's positive. It's positive right now, so I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to subtract the x and the 2. Alright, so now I need factors of negative 2 that add to negative 1. Right? So if x minus 2 equals 0, you get x is 2. And if x plus 1 equals 0, you get negative 1. What if we start off with a fraction exponent? These are easier. I like these. 2x to the 3/4 power plus 2 equals 10. You alright? Alright, remember power over root, power over root, power over root. So you could rewrite this with a 4th root if you wanted to. That's going to make it harder. Okay, my plan of attack on this is still going to start off the same as it did when it was a root. I want to get whatever something special is happening to it, I want to get that all by itself. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this extra junk, this plus 2. So I'm going to subtract the 2 from both sides. So give me 2x to the 3/4 is equal to 8. Now after we did that with the ones with the radical, we got rid of the radical. So it sure would be nice if I could get rid of a 3/4 power. If I have an x to the 1st power, that's just plain old x, isn't it? So what could I raise this to that would make a 3/4 become a 1? 3/4 times 1 is not 1. How do you make a fraction become a 1? 1/2, this is just a side note, 1/2 times what would equal 1?
A half.
No, 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. 1/2 times what would equal 1? 2, right? And what's the relationship between 1/2 and 2? They're reciprocals, right? So any fraction you have, if you multiply it by its reciprocal, it would always equal 1. So if I want this 3/4 to become a 1, I would want to multiply it by 4/3, because that's 12 over 12, which is 1, right? So I'm going to raise this whole thing to the 4/3 power, the reciprocal of 3/4. Okay, so when we distribute that, that becomes 1, so we just have 2x. Now we got to figure out what 8 to the 4/3 power is. Power over root. I know the cube root of 8 is 2. 2 to the 4th, 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 times 2 is 16. If you didn't know that, just do 8 to the 4/3 power in your calculator. It'll get you that. So I got 2x is equal to 16. So you get rid of the fraction exponent by raising it to the reciprocal. That's what's key to remember on that. Okay, got it? Let's look at 3x all to the 3/4 power minus 2 is equal to 25. What would we do first here? This is just like the problem we just did. Add 2. So it's going to give me 3x to the 3/4 power is equal to 27. Now I need to get rid of that 3/4 power. So what power am I going to raise this whole thing to?
4/3.
We're reciprocal, the 4/3. So that leaves me with 3x. Now I got to figure out what 27 to the 4/3 power is.
I got 81.
That's right. And y'all need to make sure you remember how to do that on a calculator.
Can't you just put the answers in 7 so you can multiply by the 4/3?
Coincidence. It's not going to be that way every time. But I know here 81 divided by 3 is 27. What Stephen was talking about is, why did I have to do that then when I end up getting the same answer? Might not have been divided by 3. It was just a coincidence. What's too shabby? Alright, so look at one more of those. Get a little bit more to it this time. I've got x plus 30 to the 1/2 is equal to x. Just a little low x over there. Alright, so we've been getting rid of extra junk first. So here where I've got the 1/2 power, is there anything extra that's not in that parentheses with that stuff? No, so there's no extra junk. So what can I do to get rid of the 1/2 power?
2 over 1. Or would it just be
2 over 1, which is the same as just squaring it. Now, you're going to think, well, we got to write that twice and FOIL it. No, because that whole thing is in that parentheses, so that canceled that whole power out. But here we got an x squared. So this is when it gets a little bit longer. What would we do if we get something in that neighborhood?
Would you just subtract x over 30?
Okay, Stephen's setting it equal to 0, so he's got x squared minus x minus 30 is equal to 0. Quadratic formula, this one will factor.
Can you do AC?
A times c is negative 30. What factors of negative 30 add to negative 1? negative 6 and 5, right? So I would have x minus 6 and x plus 5. It's already there, are the rest of you? 6. And negative 5. I like these kind. I like anything we actually get to algebraically solve. So I like this kind of stuff a little bit better than when we were just rewriting them, doing the power of root and all that kind of stuff.
I like doing this stuff rather than.
Me too.
Doing the graphics stuff.
Sometimes graphing takes a while. Sometimes. All right, what you think on that? Can you solve some of these now?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, maybe. All right, we'll wrap that there then.
Ask a question. Or we
No, I didn't get one ready this morning.
Awesome.